Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Dixon, and today we've got Mikael Lemberg on the podcast. He is the founder and CEO of mybizz. mybizz is an AI native platform that allows its customers to connect all of their business applications that they use, from finance to CRMs to social channels, et cetera. And then you can essentially talk to your data and ask your data questions, why certain sales are going up or down. Essentially, it's a very interesting way to not just get dashboards, but to get insights from all of your dashboards that connect all of your data in a secure way that leverages large language models with all the privacy needed to not have your data train that model. So really interesting episode. We talk a lot about his startup journey. They've only been in existence for about a year. It's him and two co-founders that started a business a year ago. They recently closed a friends and family round of funding. So we talk a little bit about what the kind of nuances are of raising money from your friends versus from a more institutional investment shop like a venture capital firm or a private equity group. And we talk a little bit about kind of what he's seeing in kind of the next 12 to 24 months when it comes to AI more broadly. So really interesting episode. I think you'll get a lot out of it. So let's get Mikael on the pod. Interested in hearing conversations with private equity leaders, CEOs of private equity-backed companies, and startup entrepreneurs where they share their stories about their career journeys, starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, and the important role that having the right talent plays in building a successful business, then you are in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. Here's your host, Justin Dixon. All right, Mikael, thank you for being a guest on the podcast. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right in. Maybe give a little bit of an overview about a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mikael Lemberg. I'm the CEO and founder of mybizz. For the past 20 some years, I've been working within the B2B SaaS industry. And one of the things I've noticed is how much of an explosion we've seen in the volume of the tool stack of companies who run, rather online businesses. I think I saw a stat the other day that the average SMB uses about 52 tools to run their business. And, so an SMB, we're talking on average tens or low hundreds of employees, right? So imagine that's in some cases more than a tool per employee, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty unworkable. So we started looking into how can we fix that with mybizz? How can we, build a platform where you just connect everything and you can ask questions or, execute commands or deploy strategies across all your apps from within a single conversational interface.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about, my small recruiting business. I definitely use probably not 50, but I definitely use a good amount of applications and tools, Slacks and CRMs and all that fun stuff. So how does maybe let's talk a little bit broadly more about mybizz, like what's the platform? How does it work? And then we'll talk a little about, your journey and all of that.
So I guess this is kind of trendy to say, but we are an AI native platform. Okay. So essentially our entire infrastructure is based on not, a static database and infrastructure where you have your database and then various workflows that permutate your data in different ways. Instead, what we've built is a modern infrastructure where you have an app store with 2,700 and some apps at this point in time. So essentially any app that you might use in your business stack, you can connect that to our platform. We then have LLMs, AI agents that are deployed, are able to talk to the tools that you connect. And essentially you have two main interfaces. One where you can chat with your data or chat with an AI about your data, and another one where you can build dashboards around your data. So you can create a single dashboard with your Google Analytics and your webinar stats and your CRM data and email marketing and whatnot, everything in one single dashboard. And then you have the other one where when you're in exploratory mode and you want to learn something that your dashboards aren't telling you, or you want to know why they're telling you what they do, you can dive into it, ask questions, explore either in collaboration with your colleagues or individually directly in conversation with an AI.
Interesting. So if I have a CRM and I'm a, a B2B SaaS company, obviously different users could use it for different things, right? If you're a sales leader, you want to see trends in sales, and maybe that's coming in from your CRM, but it also would pull in data does it pull in like data from like a Slack channel or something where
Oh,
you can like infer, okay, well, this customer, is chatting with our customer success team or our support team more often than not, and
mm.
it kind of, will infer that, hey, maybe they need
Yeah,
a.
so I mean, obviously, a lot of data you might already have that consolidated on your CRM. So that's a great way to start to connect your CRM and get whatever data you get from there. But then you probably also want to connect your social channels, and when you do so, we actually check whether any of the people who like or comment your Facebook posts or your Instagram posts, whether their names resemble someone from your CRM, and if they do, we can tell you that it seems like this person also tends to engage with you on social. And if you run webinars or if you have a customer service Slack channel, or maybe you do it via intercom, you're able to connect that to and essentially just have that one place where whatever question you might have about your data, whichever source that might be, you'll be able to look in there and just find your answer in a matter of a few seconds.
Interesting. How did you come up with this? Like, obviously, you mentioned that you've got 20 years of experience, and obviously, you saw the number of tools that companies are using, increased over that time period, obviously. But like, what made you just say, "I'm going to go start MyBizz," essentially?
So I started working on mybizz about a year ago, and at that point in time, I had just left my past employer for the past 9 years. I decided, it was time for me to try something new, and what we had been working on there for a long time was different versions of analytics tools. So social media analytics, media monitoring analytics, business intelligence analytics, and so on. And I just saw more and more often this recurring requests being something in the whereabouts of my dashboards are just giving me charts and data,
Mm,
but they're not giving me insights. What I actually want to know is why the chart looks the way it does, or what caused that spike in the middle of it. And so I started thinking, for the past 20 some years, or maybe even more, we've had this idea that whichever data question somebody might have, the answer to that is here's another dashboard.
yeah.
And then you kind of left up on your own to figure out what's the meaning of this dashboard. What are the real insights when I'm looking at this? So from there on, I kind of came up with this idea: what if you could just chat with your data? And obviously, the latest few years of development within AI and large language models largely helped make that easy and possible. But as we started building that out, we realized, this is not just a matter of, you know, what, I have a data question. It's just as much a matter of how can I optimize processes, or, am I spending money the right way within my SaaS stack, or whatever, right? So we kind of started out with this chat with your data concept, and then realized, what we have the potential to become is essentially, sort of a post software operating system for work, in a situation where you no longer need to log into your 52 different applications, but 80-90% of all the stuff you used to do in those applications, you can just do that in conversation with a smart AI, and never actually have to touch the individual tools. So that's the vision we're trying to build here.
And I guess so. If you're like the CEO of a company, and you're looking at a dashboard that was sent to you, right? And that's usually what happens: is you get a dashboard,
Yeah.
you don't get a ton of context, or maybe you don't get the context that you want, and so you've got to follow up with that person that created the dashboard, who's got to probably follow up with the person that owns the data, the sales data or marketing data or whatever. So in your instance, you can be sent this dashboard, and then the CEO can talk to it because it's live data. It's like all connected to your platform, and essentially ask, quote unquote, ask it questions and get answers on, like, to your point, why did our sales go up or down
Yeah.
in such a drastic way
So,
last quarter or whatever.
yeah, you can take any of the charts in your dashboard and you can, start asking questions about the individual charts. But another feature we have that's very popular is we call it AI Insights. So essentially, when you're looking at a dashboard, at any point in time, you can pop open a sidebar panel and it will essentially read every single chart on your dashboard, every single data point of every single chart in there, and then it will give you a summary of what you're kind of looking at right now. So it will pull out the larger trends that might not be visible in a single chart, but are visible when you compare chart A to chart B and chart C. So that way, if you only have 2 minutes to look at a chart, you don't want to spend that time trying to find correlations and spikes and trends. You just want a textual summary. So you can get that. And then the next thing we've built that really is seeing some traction too is the ability to have that AI summary delivered to you automatically. So customers who've set up a dashboard, they can then go in and say, well, I'd like every Monday morning or every morning for that matter, or maybe once a month, whatever makes sense for them. Just give me that textual kind of executive summary of what's going on this dashboard and compare that maybe to the previous period or whatever kind of custom instructions they want to add. So they can have a dashboard with a lot of different type of metrics in there, but then they can go in and say the summary that I'd like to receive every day should be focusing on revenue drivers or missed opportunities or, CSAT scores or, factors that might impact that. So it generates this kind of scenario where people get what they actually need from the dashboards instantly. And if they want to spend more time diving into it, they can, but they don't have to.
It's kind of like you're giving them the too long didn't read, right? The TLDR.
Yeah.
And if they want to then go peel back the onion a little bit, then they can do so. Or they can just say, cool, nothing earth-shattering happened yesterday, right? Or last week, depending on the cadence of your kind of automated email summary. But if there is something that's like, hey, you may want to dig into this, they can then go spend time and dig in and then, kind of really, really go deep in that. That's interesting because I feel like you can automate like reports from, your accounting software and your CRM, but then you have to compile them together or have somebody compile them together to look at and pull out any insights from the combined data, right? So
that's kind of another pet peeve we have that we're trying to address with the way we build our software is I feel like way too many analytics and intelligence tools, they're not built for the end user. The end user often being, maybe an executive or a team lead or, an owner of a certain part of a strategy or something like that. And those people are not necessarily data scientists or data engineers or, go-to-market engineers. They understand what the importance of the metrics they're looking at are, and they understand why they decided to look at them. But they don't want to spend all the time, doing all the kind of the crunch work of getting from dashboard to insights. They just know if I have a dashboard that's compiled by these different chart instances and we look at trends in certain ways, I get the data and the insights I need. So when you build a dashboard in mybizz, you don't go through, MySQL or custom setups, sorting and filtering metrics and time spans and whatnot. You write a simple prompt. You just write, give me a chart that focuses on marketing drivers across our online sales channels. And then the tool goes in and finds out, okay, what apps have you connected where we might be able to find that kind of data? And what kind of chart should that be displayed in? And then it creates it on its own. So we're always trying to build software where you shouldn't need a middleman to get what you want, right? You should just be able to tell, here's my business objective and what I think might help me improve on that or monitor and analyze on it. And then you should get that. All the middleman work we think can be taken care of by an AI in 99% of the cases.
It's very fascinating. I guess one thing that I'm always a little leery of when it comes to plugging into an LLM is just data privacy, right? And so with your system, so if I hook up my financial data, my sales data, my CRM, which has all my customers and all the information in there, is there essentially is the LLM learning with my data, or are you putting
Oh,
you can leverage their insights and their capabilities, but you're not feeding it data back to then, potentially disclose proprietary information, essentially?
yeah, no, we're really adamant about this. So, I think it's even stated on the front page of our website that we don't use customer data to train models. We also, we've gone as far as simply just to say also, even though it's only required in the state of California that we have to do not sell my data, we simply just put in our terms that we don't sell anybody's data anywhere, regardless of where in the world you've signed up from. So we're very, very clear about that. When you connect your data when you connect your apps to mybizz, we commission a private instance of LLMs that are only used on your own data. We opt out of training experiences within that LLM, and we store as little data as we possibly can on our servers. In most cases, we do on-demand retrievals when we need to in order to serve a certain request. And then the moment we've retrieved the data, we've gotten a request back that we can serve to the user, it's wiped off our servers again. So we don't store more than we have to.
Got it. Yeah, that would be any kind of system like this. I'm always leery about just who has my data, who has access to it. So that's awesome that you guys are very upfront and almost over communicative about what you do and don't do.
One thing we do ask when our customers sign up is, and that's a little I guess different from many experiences. When you sign up for mybizz, we need to know what's your email address, and we want to know your first name and last name so we can address you correctly as well. But then we also ask for a little bit more information about the company you work for and the job you have within that company. So we ask for the company URL and a short company description, as well as your job title and a role description. But we know that's also stuff that, it takes time for you to kind of get over the fear of the blank canvas and actually put in something meaningful into a role description or a company description. So what we actually do is the moment we have your email address, we commission an AI agent to go up and check the company URL that your email address belongs to. We find a good description of the company, so you don't have to fill that in. We pre-fill it for you. And then based on the job title that you enter and the company you work for, we pre-fill a role description that's probably very accurate for you as well. And the reason we do that is because then once you start using our product, every time you request a chart or ask a question or launch a command, we always compare that to who are you, what's your job, what role description do you have right now, what have you stated was important objectives for you to fulfill, and which company do you work for. So two users who work in different departments but within the same company, they'll get, even when they click on the AI insights for a dashboard, they'll get two different interpretations of that dashboard, depending on what role they have and what might be most important for them to understand.
Do you put any kind of limitations on data visibility? So, let's say I'm a junior salesperson in a company and, for whatever reason, I want to see what my CEO makes, right? Yeah. Are you able to put kind of an admin in there to say, hey, this person or these people can't see financial data or specific financial data?
Absolutely. So whenever you connect an app, you essentially organize your organization by teams. And then once you've connected an app, let's say your financial data, you essentially define which teams have access to use that app's data within their processes in mybizz. So, you might have a leadership team, and you might have operations team and a finances team and a sales and a marketing team, whatever. And each of them can have very granular set of application access that depends on exactly what that team should be trying to accomplish here. And you can even connect, your as a singular employee, you can connect your own email and your own calendar, and then set that up so only you can access that data.
Got it.
Which we actually see quite a few users do that too, in the sense they connect that, and then they'll log into mybizz in the morning, and they'll ask across my Slack and our project management and my calendar and my email, what are my top priorities to work on right now? And do I have enough time in my calendar to do that? Or they might ask, did any of my deals move into negotiation state? And if so, please clear some extra time in my calendar to work on that. So, there's an interesting use case for business operations, but we actually think there's a just as interesting use case for the individual professional who just wants to be more productive with their own set of tools and productivity platforms.
No, that's interesting. I definitely find sometimes where, small business owners, they focus on the wrong things, right? They focus on kind of easy tasks and they don't focus on the things that are going to be revenue generating or move the needle forward. And so, to have somebody or AI kind of say, hey, you may want to follow up with this customer because they're, they did something that says either something good or something bad, right? And so you may want to, lean into that. Interesting. So where are you from a company growth standpoint, right? You said you started it about a year ago. And so what's been the journey so far, and where are you from do you have a big team, or are you essentially you're the only person, you've got a bunch of AI bots and agents that are helping you build everything?
I do have a few friends that I get to chat with every once in a while. I started out as a solo founder back a year ago, and then I was so lucky that a few close former colleagues of mine became available and were excited about the idea of building something on their own too. So today I'm joined by two co-founders. I have a chief product officer and a chief technology officer. And so we're building this product together. We've got a couple of freelancers on top of that helps out with a few different marketing efforts and sales efforts and so on. But the core team is us three co-founders. We closed a friends and family funding round here actually earlier this month. And we're really excited about the opportunities that gives us, because the point we're at in terms of growth and development now is essentially we have, I'd say, a market mature product. Obviously, we continue to build on it, and there's lots of stuff. We have great plans for the future, but we have a product that we see customers wanting to sign up for and wanting to pay money for, and feel that it's a valuable addition to their daily set of tools. So we're really excited about what this recent capital injection will allow us in terms of just ramping up distribution and getting in front of a lot more eyeballs and telling our story.
Yeah. And what is your current kind of marketing strategy? Is it really kind of a product-led growth where you're just, pumping money in to get, the message out there in front of the right eyeballs, and then it's a lower cost model where you can just sign up. You don't need to talk to a salesperson or do a full demo. It's really kind of a, self-explanatory, self-onboarding, kind of a tool.
Yeah, absolutely. We, having worked for a couple of decades in software as a service, I've come to harbor a passionate hate for software tools that require talking to a salesperson and getting a demo before you can get started. Obviously, if somebody feels like they're more comfortable talking to a human before getting started, they can. But anyone who navigates to our website can sign up for a free trial on their own. They'll get 2 weeks of free access. They don't have to connect a credit card in advance. So, if they don't like it within those 2 weeks, they can just forget about us and nothing will ever come from that. if they do like it, they can upgrade to a paid plan at any point in time. And we're really, really focused on just, kind of doing, I call it good guy marketing. So, we try to be very honest and transparent in what we do. You can get an annual discount if you want, but the prices that we feature on our website are monthly. So, you don't have that experience of going to the pricing page and seeing one price and feeling, oh, that's okay. And then once you start signing up, you realize, well, that's only if you give us 12 months of license fee up front. So you see the prices, you see that's what we charge. If you want an annual discount, you can sign up for that. And then we're doing something that's quite different from most other kind of vendors in our category as well, which is the moment you sign up for a business plan, we actually give you unlimited users and unlimited teams. So, most of our competitors will charge you per user seat or maybe even per dashboard. And we do none of that. The way we see it is essentially we're in the business of selling work completed. Every time you interact with our AI, you are asking for a little piece of work to be completed. And if we manage to do a good job of that, that's worth something to you. So when you sign up for a product, you sign up with a low monthly fee. You can, if you want, you can connect your entire company to the platform afterwards. It won't cost you a single cent extra. And then you have an allowance of AI credits that you can consume within the product. And obviously, if it turns out that you find a lot of value in what we deliver and the output you get from our product, you may want to either ad hoc purchase more credits or prepay more credits. We've got various models for that. You can get discounts if you sign up for a higher subscription amount. But if you like the flexibility, you can also just buy when you need or activate automatic replenishment.
Yeah. What are some interesting, I guess, insights? Because obviously you would think that your customer base would be a similar genre of company, SaaS, tech focused kind of things. But are you seeing, and I know you've only been around for a year and everything, but are you seeing anything that's interesting that maybe that you didn't think of from a user base or a use case, like anything that's kind of like caught you a little off guard is like, oh, wow, I didn't realize we would get a lot of landscaping companies to use our platform or something, kind of interesting like that.
Yeah. We definitely see a widespread use of our product within certain sectors that were probably pretty predictive for us. Generally just business that is digitally savvy, uses a bunch of different tools, and especially if those tools that they use are, not bespoke and something custom built in their own basement. If it's an e-commerce and they use Shopify, then that's a good example of someone who sees a lot of value in our product. We see quite a lot of interest from agencies too, and I think that's related to the time that we can save them in servicing their customers. They build these dashboards. They need to deliver maybe a weekly or a monthly report on how they're executing the customer's budget. And that's very, prescriptive. Once they kind of know what they want to report on, it's the same thing that needs to be done and again and again. And that lends itself well to, something you can automate with an AI and expect a high fidelity of output every time, right? I will say the thing that has surprised me the most in terms of use cases is actually how many of our users think of us as an individual productivity tool as well. So we came into this very much from kind of the business operations aspect. What if you could get better business data? What if you could connect all these big tools to each other and so on? But I think, a lot of people wish they had their own personal executive assistant. They can just, help them manage their calendar, help them manage their inbox, help them manage their project tool, help them, log journal entries or whatever they need to, be as productive as possible. And that took me a little by surprise, how much we're seeing an adoption within that type of use cases.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you can your assistant, your AI assistant, really has the ability to kind of an example you talked about earlier. Like you can say, hey, do I have enough time on my calendar to do the things that I need to do that are the high value things that I need to do? And the AI thing may say you've only got, a 30-minute block at 2 o'clock, and that may not be enough time, but you've got a meeting that you can probably push because of something, right? Because maybe it saw some interaction with this person, maybe it's an employee that you're like, hey, if you can push this to tomorrow, that would their calendar is aligned and whatever. So yeah, I could definitely see it because it's a little bit more intelligent than just an assistant, right? They have access to literally all of your data, and so they can infer different priorities that you may not even see as the owner of the business, or somebody that's just kind of looking at your emails.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see that actually as an interesting use case.
Yeah, I saw like a cool, very specific example I saw the other day was one of our users is a freelancer, and so they got a new job or client, and that client was asking for a certain piece of work done by as fast as possible. So they essentially went to mybizz and asked, "Here's what the client is asking me to do. Take a look at my calendar and tell me when it's realistic that I'll have it done." Given what's already blocked and the amount of time it will likely take to do this thing. So, you can use it for more than just, an advanced Calendly. You can actually use it to get insights about your own productivity.
Interesting. I wonder if it learns about how often you reschedule or push or change meetings and things like that. Because I'm notorious myself to scheduling, putting a time block on my calendar for something specific to do, and then that time comes up, and I'm like, well, I'll do that tomorrow, right? And so it learns like, hey, Justin, you've procrastinated on this one thing for 3 weeks now. You may want to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it may have insights and tells you things you don't necessarily want to hear.
Yeah.
And so I guess as you think about kind of being a founder, is this your first startup that you've been a founder of?
Yeah, it's my first founding experience. I've been in startups for my whole career, but this is the first time I get to be the, guy where the buck stops.
Yeah. So I'm curious about, I've always liked the origin stories and like what you learned. So like what have you been excited about that you maybe didn't realize that you're going to be excited about as a founder? And obviously you've got a very core team, and your business doesn't really require a ton of employees to be pretty big and successful, right? So yeah, what are some lessons learned that you've learned as a first time founder for a year now?
So I think the biggest learning I've had is that fundraising in itself is a sales job, and it's pretty much a full-time sales job. Like it's not just a matter of I've got a good idea and let me ping a few folks and see if they're interested in financing this idea that I believe in. You essentially, your potential investor group, you have to think about them as a whole separate group of potential customers. What they're going to buy is not necessarily your product and the service that you're building, but your investment case, right?
Yeah.
So you need your own go-to-market strategy for how to get in front of investors and have a good pitch with them. And I think I wouldn't say I was completely oblivious about this before I got started, but it's definitely, it's a learning process, and I feel like I've learned a lot, and I probably still have much to learn still.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of startup founders, and some of them, you kind of get stuck in this raise, burn, and it to your point, it's a full-time job. And sometimes I talked to one a few weeks ago that they essentially hired an operations leader because they were the founder was so focused on fundraising that some of the operational things within the business that they needed to move forward were slipping because they were so focused on raising money, and kind of the raise almost became the product or something that they were selling versus this cool tool that they were building. So I think that's interesting, and I'm kind of curious because you've just done a friends and family round, right? And so raising from an institutional investor, I think I would assume, I've never done it. I would assume it would be a little bit more, I want to say transactional, but you don't know them personally, right?
Right.
How was it kind of talking to your friends and family about like, hey, I have this idea. Here's why I think it's going to be successful, because you theoretically have to see them at Thanksgiving, or at the bar tomorrow, or you got to interact with them more versus a venture capital group is their whole job, their whole existence is to invest money in startups to hopefully get a return on that investment. So your friends aren't necessarily there to just be your bank, right, or fund you. So I'm just curious how that works.
And it's a difficult kind of conversation, because the standard advice is don't mix friendship with money, right?
Yeah.
And for a good reason. That can cause a lot of drift if things are not working out the way that you expect it to. I mean, what I've done in the conversations I've had, which led to our process, has been very clear in essentially communicating that what I'm asking you to do here is invest in me, and you can do that because you have faith and optimism around what you think I'm able to accomplish, and that should probably at this point in time be more driving for your decision than necessarily what's the exact product I'm working on. Because the thing about friends and family also is that they're not proficient investors necessarily. They don't do that as a day job, so they don't have preferred categories they invest in. They don't. They have their own day jobs or whatever that might be, which it might be something completely different. So, and they don't have time to become experts in your domain and assess whether that's a good investment or not. So the first thing I say is, invest in me. And if you believe I can accomplish something, then, let's have that conversation. And if you don't feel certain enough about that, or feel uncomfortable with that being the case, then no hard feelings. Then it's not for you. The second thing I say is you need to be ready to lose everything you put in here, because there's a non-trivial chance that this doesn't work out, right? And if that's the case, then we need to be able to see each other at Thanksgiving after that too, right?
Right.
So those are the two things kind of I've led with in those conversations, and luckily I've been blessed with some folks along my upbringing and career who have enough faith in me and that they felt like this was something they would like to try and help me accomplish here. The thing I'll say then, going from that point on and to all the conversations we're having today, which are with more institutional investors and so on, is that what I have come to realize that I certainly didn't know before I got started here is, the whole dynamics of every single investment that an institutional investor makes has to essentially bear the potential to earn back the whole fund. So the first thing you want to understand is what fund does this come from, and what kind of earnout does this investor need to see in order for your business case to be interesting? Because it's not enough that you can just go and say, I'm asking for X amount of money, and here's a business plan that shows we can 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 X that. If the starting point, the X amount of money that you're asking for, and the 10,000 X of that doesn't match the bracket that this fund is targeting, you're just not relevant for them. Yeah. So that was a big learning for me, for sure.
Yeah, it is interesting because, to your point, if they invest in 10 startups, 8 are going to fail, one's going to be good and one's going to be amazing, right? And so they're betting on that one to essentially balance the fund and hit their hurdle. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider for sure as you're raising money.
And another thing that is relevant to consider there is also what's the age of the fund, right? Most funds have a lifetime of 5 to 7 years. So if you're talking to someone who's managing a rather new fund and it's got, let's say, 6 or 7 years left, the business case they might be looking at is how can you go from where you are right now to potentially an IPO in 5 to 7 years, right? But if you're talking to someone and their fund is already 4 or 5 years old, they want to be able to see an exit from their investment in you within a much shorter time frame.
Right.
So then what you need to show to them is, your investment here can take us to another raise or to an acquisition at this point in time.
Yeah. A lot of things you got to consider when you're raising money. It's not just about who's got the biggest pocketbook. Essentially, you got to find out the right investor, the right group, and everything for you. It definitely makes a ton of sense. Because you're in the AI space, I'm just kind of curious to get your broad strokes on where do you think AI is going from next 12 to 24 months? Because everybody's talking about it's going to replace a ton of jobs and make everybody else's job more efficient, and some people are very scared about it, some people don't really see it as a massive threat. I'm just kind of curious what you think, broad strokes, not just for what you're doing currently, but just at large in the broader economy.
I think the job market dynamics that we've seen in the past 6 to 12 months with big tech, leading a lot of large layoff rounds. Some of them are being quite transparent about the reasoning for this, and others not. But in general, what I see here is that to a certain extent, the replacement of certain job functions with AI is already happening. Mm-hmm. In some cases, the companies are, they're making the bet up front. So they're essentially saying, let's get rid of the people first and then figure out how to apply AI to it. And because we don't have the people anymore, we have to figure out the AI solution and then it will happen. While others are like, well, we've done this for a while now and we're seeing efficiencies in XYZ areas. And because of those efficiencies, we think we can reprioritize our workforce. So, the basic question as to will AI replace certain roles, I think that's already happening. I'm torn about that because, I have close friends and former colleagues who, have had to find new employment because of those situations, right? And at the same time, I'm aware that I'm building a product that, to a certain extent, drives efficiencies. And the company I'm building, if I had started building that, let's say 2 or 3 years ago, I would have a certain expectation about how many employees we would want to, what would be the ideal employee count for a company like that. And, maybe then those few years ago, I would have said, if we can get to 100 or 200 employees within X amount of years, that's a good size. And today I'm saying, well, maybe we don't need to be more than 20 or 25 employees maximum, right? So it's challenging for sure for anyone who is, still influenced by these job market dynamics. But what I think this does is also create a lot of opportunity to, maybe take charge of your own destiny and, try figure out if I were to build a company, then what kind of company would I want to build? Using, either using various vibe coding solutions to get to your first prototype and and then get some help from more experienced engineers to take that prototype to something that's market ready. Use mybizz maybe to do the vibe operations side of your business.
Right.
So that gets you to a point now where if you've got a good idea and you've got time to test that idea, you don't necessarily need a whole team of engineers and a whole team of operators to get to a point where you can validate the idea. Maybe you can actually do that by yourself. And then if you're able to validate that idea, then think about what are the supporting resources I need around myself to build a real company on this use case.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely get a lot farther today down I have an idea, let me test the theory, than you could in ever, frankly, right? Like you can vibe code, somebody like me that's not technical, I could probably create something half usable that I could then take to somebody that's smarter technically and say, yeah, cool, this works, but you need to do this. And, it's, before I would just have, me personally or other people just have ideas that you have, and then you've got to go talk to somebody and that's technical and can start, building you an app or whatever the case is. So yeah, you can definitely test your hypothesis way easier now than you pretty much ever could, frankly, which is great. I guess more specifically towards mybizz, if we jumped on a podcast 12 months from now, that would be 2 years that you'll be in business. Like what are you, or what are maybe one or two things that you would like to accomplish in the next 12 months that, you'd be excited to talk about on that podcast?
So I would hope if you and I talk, a year from now, I would hope that we're in a place where we have our core business product and mybizz for business operators that we've been talking about today. I think at that point in time, we'll probably also have launched a more consumer targeted application that helps individuals and professionals optimize their own personal productivity. And then I hope that, we would have in the thousands of users of that at that point in time. I think, something that's incredibly interesting within the space that we're working within is if we've got this platform where the people and the entities who connect to our platform can gather every single app they use, that creates a really interesting foundation for, let's say, maybe expanding into becoming an ecosystem where people can build AI agents and AI workflows on top of that. Ideally, I would see us get to a point where, it's not just we're a company, we've built a product, here's, 20 different agents you can deploy. But why not try and create an ecosystem where anyone can go in and say, well, what if I connected app number 1734 with app number 8432, and then I did this AI reasoning in between, and then they launch that, and maybe they can make some money on that by marketing that in an agent marketplace. So I think that's kind of the direction we want to go. I think the other thing we would probably see within maybe not 1 year, but maybe 2 to 3 years is overall, active usage, logged in active usage of most SaaS platforms will drastically decrease. And on the other hand, we'll see a drastic increase of how these different tools are being activated and used through means of API and LLMs and so on. I firmly believe that, a lot of these different tools actually don't even need to have their own UI. All they need is a good way to communicate with a foundational level, a foundational layer, where a large language model can communicate back and forth between whatever it needs in order to execute something. So that's kind of the shift that I think we're going to see over the next few years, and what we're trying to build solutions for.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the two things you mentioned there is having kind of almost like an agent marketplace that where I could, essentially do something specific to my business or create a workflow or an agent specific to what I'm doing, but then be able to white label that or share that in an agent marketplace that you create amongst your users and say, hey, here's what I've done, here's why I think it works for me. If you have a similar use case, you can use it, and it's $5 a month or whatever, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so you can then almost create an agent marketplace for somebody to create one for their business and then sell it to other people. That's interesting. And yeah, the other point about having more of all of your SaaS platforms are essentially not consumer facing, they're more business facing, and then they don't have to have this UI, and so then they just communicate to a master platform that talks to the data like your platform, which I think I hadn't really thought about, because it seems like every day there's a new something that's being developed, vibe coded and sold to people, and it's good, or maybe it's not, I don't know, but yeah, there's a lot of changes going on, and that's why I'm asking most of the guests that are kind of plugged into the AI world kind of what their thoughts are, because we don't know, and we won't know until it happens, and everybody has their own opinions, and we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But Mikael, it's been awesome to learn about you and your business, mybizz, and I want to wrap this up with a 3-pack of questions that I ask every guest. So first question is, what's a book or podcast that you found helpful or inspirational that you would want to share with the audience?
You're catching me on the spot here. I am actually not much of a podcast listener myself. I prefer the written formats.
Okay.
An all-time favorite, I guess an all-time favorite of mine that I revisit every couple of years is Walter Isaacson's biography on Steve Jobs.
Okay.
So that one, I feel like, he was a complex person, and, he's obviously celebrated for his foresight in technology and so on. But I feel that book, it gives some really interesting insights also into what was there, why was he actually quite terrible to work with as well, and why did people still come out of that experience and say they would do it all over again?
Yeah, no, I it's a great book, great recommendation. Second question here, what's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
I cook. I love to cook. And so you might be able to hear in my accent, I'm not originally from Austin, Texas.
Right.
I'm Danish, and every once in a while, I miss the cooking from my home country.
Okay.
And I was blessed with a mother who was a fabulous cook. So she taught me a bunch of tricks, and that's my best way of relaxing, cooking a really nice meal.
Very cool. Any particular favorites that we may or may not know about as non-Danish people?
So a local Danish specialty is pig's hearts in red wine sauce.
Okay.
So, not everybody is a fan of intestines, but but if you do like it, I will say it's the most tender muscle in the whole body of any animal, and that means you can let it simmer for a very long time. You'll extract a lot of flavor from that, and you can make an amazing French sauce out of that.
Got it. Well, I will have to take your word for that. I don't know if that's something I would ever want to try, but hey, to each is their own, essentially. So very cool. Cooking is definitely a very relaxing thing. My wife and I cook most meals, throughout the week, so it's a good exercise to do together. Last question here. Favorite vacation spot? Maybe it's going back to Denmark, but any other spot that you like to go when you have free time?
I mean, I'm happy anywhere near a beach.
Okay.
I think last year I took my wife and my son to Hawaii, and that was our first joint experience there, and it's beautiful. It's nature you don't see anywhere else. So that's highly recommended for anyone who hasn't been there.
Yeah, definitely don't see that type of topography in Austin, Texas. That's for
No,
sure.
you cannot. Not in Denmark either.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Awesome. Well, Michael, I really appreciate your time. If people want to reach out and learn more about MyBizz, or learn more about your journey, what's the best way to connect with you?
So obviously we have our website, which is mybizz AI. It's two zetas, so mybizz.ai. Otherwise, find me on LinkedIn, Mikael Lemberg, Michael with a K, or just search for MyBizz, and I'm sure I'll pop up as an associated person to that entity.
Awesome. Very cool. We'll have all that stuff in the show notes. Again, Michael, thank you very much for the time. It's been awesome to chat with you and learn about your story.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Thank you so much.
I hope you found at least one actionable insight from this episode of the Growth Capital Podcast, your one-stop shop for insights from private equity leaders, CEOs, and startup entrepreneurs on starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, as well as the role having the right talent plays in growing a successful business. It would be greatly appreciated if you would rate and review this podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and drop us a comment so we can expand the audience of this podcast. Thank you for all your support, and don't forget about upcoming episodes dropping every Tuesday.